Imagine a man so dangerous that even death seemed to fear him. 3 times the state tried to end his life, and 3 times he defied it. Guards, prison walls, and execution chambers, all powerless against his cunning. His name alone sends shivers through law enforcement, a name whispered in fear from coast to coast. Some call him a ghost, others a nightmare, but everyone agrees on one thing: he is unstoppable. From his first crimes, it was clear he wasn't like any ordinary criminal. He struck with precision, planning each move with terrifying intelligence, leaving behind chaos and fear. The law tried to contain him, but no cage was strong enough, no lock secure enough, and no sentence final enough to hold him. His audacity grew with every arrest, every escape, every death sentence he survived. The first execution failed, shocking the nation and embarrassing the authorities. The second, even more daring, left prisons questioning their own security. And the third was nearly cinematic, a masterclass in evasion that cemented his legend. Tonight, we follow the story of a criminal who became a symbol of fear and fascination, a man who turned every death sentence into a challenge and every prison into a playground. His escapes weren't just clever, they were terrifying. His life is a warning. Some men cannot be tamed, and some crimes are too monstrous to ever be forgiven. This is the story of America's most dangerous prisoner, the man who laughed in the face of death. He was born into a world that seemed indifferent to his existence, but it didn't take long for the darkness inside him to emerge. From an early age, his behavior was alarming. Teachers and neighbors noticed a coldness, a lack of empathy, and an uncanny ability to manipulate those around him. Small crimes escalated quickly into something far more dangerous, and by his late teens, law enforcement had already begun to take notice. Yet even then, nobody could have predicted the level of terror he would one day bring. His first major crimes were audacious and shocking. Robberies, assaults, and later murders marked him as someone not only capable of extreme violence, but also someone who planned his actions with frightening precision. He left behind little evidence, no witnesses willing to testify, and a growing trail of fear that spread across multiple states. Every escape from minor arrests only sharpened his reputation, making him a nightmare for the authorities. Despite his criminal path, he had a mind that was razor-sharp. He studied the system, learned its weaknesses, and began using them to his advantage. Guards underestimated him, thinking he could be controlled like any ordinary prisoner, but he was different. He watched, he waited, and he learned. Every encounter with the law only taught him more about how to manipulate people and exploit weaknesses. His intelligence, combined with his ruthless nature, made him one of the most dangerous men in America. By the time he committed the crimes that would land him a death sentence, he had already become a legend in underground criminal circles. People whispered about him, sharing stories of his cunning escapes, his audacious attacks, and his complete lack of fear. Law enforcement faced mounting pressure, not only to catch him, but to understand a mind that seemed almost untouchable. The public was both terrified and fascinated. Newspapers sensationalized his crimes. Television networks ran special reports, and social media buzzed with speculation. Some called him a genius, others a monster, but nobody could deny that he had captured the nation's attention. He wasn't just another criminal. He was a force that the justice system struggled to contain. A man who had already outsmarted the law multiple times and seemed destined to do so again. And it was only the beginning. His rise from a troubled youth to one of America's most notorious prisoners set the stage for the events that would shock the nation. Events that included not 1, not 2, but 3 attempts to take his life, all of which he survived. The man who would come to haunt prison walls and execution chambers across the country had already proven one undeniable truth. He was unstoppable, and the world had yet to see the full extent of his danger. After years of evading the law, he was finally caught. The nation breathed a temporary sigh of relief, believing that the most dangerous man in America was finally behind bars. His trial was high profile, attracting intense media attention. Every detail of his crimes was scrutinized, and the courtroom buzzed with tension. The prosecution painted him as a remorseless killer, while the defense could offer little in his favor. In the end, the jury had no choice. He was sentenced to death. For the first time, the state believed they had a solution that could finally contain him. Security measures were tight. Guards were doubled, cameras installed everywhere, and the execution chamber was prepared with the utmost precision. Every possible precaution was taken. But despite all the planning and precautions, he had already begun working on his next move, though nobody could imagine just how audacious it would be. He was calm, almost eerily composed as the date of his execution approached. Those who watched him closely noted a quiet confidence, a sense that he had no intention of leaving this world so easily. When the day arrived, the atmosphere was tense. Prison officials, law enforcement, and media personnel gathered, all expecting the sentence to be carried out without incident. But moments before it was to begin, chaos erupted. His escape was not the result of brute force or luck. It was meticulous planning. Using a combination of observation, manipulation, and timing, he exploited a weakness in the system that nobody had noticed. Guards were distracted, locks were circumvented, and suddenly the man who was supposed to die that day was gone. The news spread like wildfire. The first execution attempt had failed, and the nation was stunned. Authorities were humiliated, questioning every security protocol and every guard involved. The public was terrified, realizing that the man they thought was finally caught was, in fact, untouchable. Stories began circulating about how he had navigated the prison undetected, how he had vanished into the night, and how no one could trace his movements once he was free. For him, the escape was a demonstration of control. It was not just about avoiding death. It was a message to the world. He had shown that even the most final of punishments could not stop him. His audacity only grew after this first escape, and law enforcement quickly realized that they were not dealing with a typical criminal. He was intelligent, resourceful, and completely fearless, qualities that would make capturing him again far more difficult. The first execution attempt and his stunning escape became a turning point in his story. It elevated him from a dangerous criminal to a near-mythical figure, someone whose legend would haunt the nation for years. From this point onward, the world knew one undeniable truth. Catching him would require more than prisons, more than guards, and more than death itself. And yet the question remained, how long could he continue to defy a system designed to contain the worst criminals in America? After months on the run, he was finally captured again. Law enforcement believed that this time, with the lessons learned from his first audacious escape, they could finally contain him. He was transported to a maximum security prison, a facility designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in the country. Every guard was warned, every corner monitored, and every security measure doubled. The world watched, believing that this time justice would prevail. But he was not an ordinary prisoner. From the moment he arrived, he studied everything, the routines of the guards, the weak points in the surveillance systems, even the psychology of the officers who thought they could control him. He observed patiently, quietly, like a predator stalking his prey. Every conversation, every small act of carelessness by the staff became a piece of his plan. He had learned from his first escape, and now he was even more prepared. As the date of his second execution approached, tension in the prison was unbearable. Officials believed that all possible contingencies had been covered. The chamber was reinforced, the staff trained, and escape seemed impossible. But he thrived on the impossible. Calm and composed, he appeared to submit to his fate, masking the storm of calculation brewing beneath the surface. His eyes, cold and unflinching, revealed nothing. But inside, He was already moving several steps ahead of everyone around him. When the day arrived, the execution protocol began. The prison was silent, except for the procedural announcements. And then, in a moment that shocked everyone, he struck. The escape was flawless in its execution, coordinated, rapid, and terrifyingly clever. He exploited a combination of distraction, misdirection, and precise timing, slipping past security as if the walls themselves were not there. Guards scrambled, alarms blared, and cameras captured only fleeting shadows. Once again, he vanished. The nation erupted in disbelief. How could the man who had survived the first execution also escape the second, this time from maximum security conditions? Authorities were forced to admit the impossible. They were dealing with a criminal who seemed beyond the reach of law itself. The media sensationalized the escape, calling it a masterclass in criminal genius, while the public became simultaneously horrified and fascinated. His legend grew, transforming him into a symbol of audacity and fear. For him, the second escape was more than survival. It was a statement. He had shown that even the most reinforced systems could be outsmarted, that the law could be manipulated, and that death was not a certainty for someone like him. Each escape fueled his reputation. Each near-death experience honed his cunning, and each law enforcement failure elevated him to near-mythical status. The man who had once been just another dangerous criminal was now untouchable, a predator whose next moves were impossible to predict. By the end of his second escape, it was clear that he had become more than a criminal. He had become a force that the entire justice system struggled to contain, and the question haunting everyone remained. Could anyone ever stop him, or was he truly unstoppable? By the time of his third arrest, he was no longer just a criminal. He was a legend. His name struck fear into the hearts of law enforcement, politicians, and even hardened inmates. After his second escape, the authorities vowed this time would be different. Maximum security prisons, round-the-clock surveillance, reinforced cells, and elite guards were deployed. Every precaution imaginable was taken to ensure that he could never slip away again. The public followed the story obsessively, waiting to see if this notorious man could finally be stopped. From the moment he entered the facility, he began observing everything. His mind worked like a perfect machine, analyzing routines, guard patterns, and even the psychology of those around him. He watched the flaws that even the most advanced security systems couldn't hide. Every camera, every lock, and every checkpoint was a puzzle he was determined to solve. While officials believed he was being monitored constantly, he was already formulating a plan that was bolder than anything he had attempted before. The date of the third execution arrived, and tension filled the prison. This time, authorities were certain he would not escape. Reinforced restraints, multiple layers of security, and a highly trained execution team were all in place. The media described it as foolproof, and the nation braced for closure. Yet the man at the center of it all appeared completely calm, his cold, unreadable demeanor betraying nothing. He had done this before, and now he was ready to do it again, but on an even more audacious scale. When the moment came, his plan unfolded with precision and speed that stunned everyone. Exploiting a minor oversight that only someone with his intelligence could notice, he bypassed multiple layers of security in a sequence that seemed almost impossible. Guards were powerless to stop him, alarms blared, and cameras captured only fleeting glimpses of his movements. He vanished in the chaos, leaving the most heavily guarded execution chamber in the country empty and the authorities humiliated. The third escape cemented his reputation as one of the most audacious criminals in history. Experts marveled at his ability to outthink highly trained professionals. The media frenzy reached new heights, while the public's fear and fascination grew exponentially. Every detail of the escape was dissected, speculated upon, and sensationalized. For him, it was more than survival. It was a message. He had turned the ultimate punishment into an opportunity to display his mastery over the system. After this third escape, he became more than a criminal. He became a symbol of defiance and terror. The nation realized that this was a man who could not be tamed, a man whose audacity, intelligence, and ruthlessness made him untouchable. With each near-death experience, he grew bolder, sharper, and more unpredictable. The world was left with one chilling question. Could anyone ever stop him, or was he truly unstoppable? After his third audacious escape, the nation was gripped by a mix of fear, fascination, and disbelief. He was no longer just a criminal. He had become a legend, a symbol of defiance against the very system designed to contain him. Law enforcement agencies scrambled, forming task forces and deploying resources that had never been used before. The FBI, state police, and local authorities coordinated in an unprecedented effort, yet he remained elusive. Every attempt to track him ended in frustration. It was as if he could vanish at will, leaving only whispers and speculation in his wake. His methods had become almost impossible to predict. He studied the law, the guards, and the prison systems like a chess master, always thinking several moves ahead. Even when cornered, he managed to exploit weaknesses in the system that no one else could see. Each escape only enhanced his reputation, turning him into a nearly mythical figure in both criminal and law enforcement circles. To the public, he became a symbol of cunning, audacity, and danger, someone who had survived what should have been inevitable and laughed at the idea of finality. Psychologists and criminal experts pored over his life, trying to understand what made him tick. Was it sheer intelligence, an absence of fear, or a ruthless survival instinct that drove him? Perhaps it was a combination of all three. His ability to manipulate, observe, and plan made him far more than a simple criminal. He was a mastermind, a strategist, and a predator who could outwit entire institutions. Every escape added layers to his legend, making him a figure that captivated true crime enthusiasts worldwide. Media coverage turned him into a household name. Documentaries, news specials, and countless articles dissected his crimes and escapes. Some called him a genius, others a monster, but everyone agreed that he was unlike any criminal before him. He had rewritten the rules of survival behind bars and defied the ultimate punishment repeatedly. His story became a cautionary tale for prison systems, law enforcement, and the public alike. Even as authorities intensified their search, he seemed to be always one step ahead. His movements were unpredictable, his plans meticulous, and his survival instinct unmatched. The world watched, captivated by a criminal who had escaped not once, not twice, but 3 times from death itself. His legacy was not just in the crimes he committed or the prisons he outsmarted, it was in the fear, respect, and fascination he left behind. He had become a symbol of human cunning and audacity, someone whose story would be told for generations. And so the question remains, could he ever be caught, or was he truly untouchable? The legend of America's most dangerous prisoner continues to haunt law enforcement and inspire awe. A chilling reminder that some men cannot be tamed and some crimes can never truly be contained.